thank Senator Crystal Asike for this wonderful bill. I think it goes a long way to celebrate her commitment. I think Kenyans generally, and especially people who are living differently ably, or PWDs, should be proud, Madam Speaker, of what Senator Crystal Asike is doing to push for their welfare. I think she has pushed for a number of bills, Madam Speaker, which is quite a number. And I request also to diversify, because most of our bills, Madam Speaker, has been biased, let me use that word, towards PWDs. But I think it is rightfully there, because in any case, this section of the population also need the necessary attention that Senator Crystal Asike is doing. And I'm happy the commitment she has in the role of Article 96 as a senator is bearing fruits. The commitment she has is the commitment that she normally has, or she has used to on a creative wall. And I assure you, Madam Speaker, once in a while when you listen to our songs, they are well thought out and in us a lot, especially for some of us who did fasihi or literature. It sends very good messages across. So, Madam Speaker, the basis of the PWD, the Persons with Disabilities Bill 2023. Madam Speaker, according to 2019 Population and Housing Census, the population of PWDs in Kenya is 2% of the population. That is 0.9 million people live with PWDs in Kenya. Madam Speaker, to be a PWD, sometimes many people imagine that you must be born with it. Sometimes because of the accidents, Madam Speaker. You saw what happened in Londiani Junction, where over more than 50 lives were lost, Madam Speaker. And we still empathize and sympathize with those families, Madam Speaker. A number of many people are still recuperating in the hospitals. And some of them might become permanently disabled. And these were able-bodied Kenyans, Madam Speaker. So PWDs does not mean that sometimes you are born with it, or because of other things in life, like accidents, which is rampant in this country, Madam Speaker. And I hope the relevant agencies, NTSA, Traffic Department, the Ministry of Transport should seize the matter, because we are losing many Kenyans through road accidents. And secondly, Madam Speaker, we are also losing many Kenyans who either lose their limbs or their hands, Madam Speaker, or even lose the act of seeing, Madam Speaker. And therefore, it becomes a challenge. So when we have a topic about the people living with disability, Madam Speaker, we should not imagine that these are different from us. They are also part of Kenyans. And there are people who are temporarily disabled, Madam Speaker. And where I come from, I'm happy, Senator Crystal, you are taking the lead in this, in the issue of legislation to ensure PWDs are recognized. Like in Nandi, we have a number of schools, like Kenya School, Kapsabet School for the Deaf in Kapsabet Town. We have small homes that are being sponsored by Catholics in Tindred, especially in, Madam Speaker, in Tachazis, which is sponsored by the Catholic. And I want to commend the role of religious organizations in this country. It's the Catholic has taken a role. A number of religious, even Salvation Army, Madam Speaker, are also playing a critical role. The Quakers, the Anglican, the Adventists. I want to commend the religious organizations for taking keen interest, especially to assist people living with disability. And Nandi has been a beneficiary of, especially of small homes that are supported by, Madam Speaker, by the Catholic Church of Kenya. And I want to really thank the Bishop of Eldoret Diocese, where our jurisdiction, my jurisdiction fall, Bishop Dominic Mengich, Madam Speaker, for ensuring those small homes continue to run. And you know, Madam Speaker, I visited, another one is in Dalat Jobs Public School for the people living with disability. The name Job comes from a young man who was born without arms and limbs. And she attended a normal primary school in Dalat in Masab sub-county. He went ahead to establish a public school specifically for children living with disability. And at the beginning of the year, around March, Madam Speaker, of this year, I visited that school. Madam Speaker, when you see the teachers and the community who supports our children, Madam Speaker, they are doing a lot of job. These are heroes. These are people we should be giving head of state commendations. We should be recognizing them. Not people who just carry kiteri and on the line and just vote and then you give them head of state commendation, Madam Speaker. When you go and see, these are children who have different challenges, Madam Speaker, and they take care of them, they change them, they teach them to work, they do physiotherapy, Madam Speaker, and I'm impressed from what Job is doing in Dalat school for PWDs, Madam Speaker. And I will, one of these fine days, I'll request Senator Crystal Lasige to visit those of my two schools. There are only two in the county, and also encourage, even to motivate them, to tell them being different is like all of us. Even if you are PWD, it does not mean you have less opportunity. If you are aggressive and you work hard, you can be who you can be. Madam Speaker, in the upshot of my opening remarks, because I'll be very brief, because I've been given the honor to second. Madam Speaker, when you look under Article 54 of the Constitution, it talks persons with disability. And I think the Disability Act that is credited to then Vice President Moody Awori of 2003, I think it has been overtaken by events, and I agree with her that we need to repeal that law and come up with a 2023 one sponsored by Crystal, the PWD's Act. And it is based on Article 54 of the Constitution, because Constitution 2010 is very clear. Like, for example, Madam Speaker, under Article 54, it basically, what Senator Crystal has done is the import of Article 54 and now give it a prescriptive nature in the legislation. For example, to be treated with dignity and respect, to be addressed and referred in a manner that is not demeaning. I think that is important, Madam Speaker. No one likes to be demeaned, anyone in this, and they must their dignity, Madam Speaker. When you no longer have a dignity, you are no longer a person, Madam Speaker. And they must be respected, like but B, to access educational institutions and facilities for PWDs are integrated into society to extent of compatible with the interest of the person. Madam Speaker, and I want to call upon parents, because research has shown that some parents, when they get children with PWDs, they hide them, Madam Speaker. They don't take them to school. They see as a curse, especially in our African sector, Madam Speaker. You don't choose, somebody was saying you don't choose the parents you are born to. And Madam Speaker, you also don't choose the children you get. So I want to ask parents across the country that let us be proud of our children, whether they are children living with disability or the normal children. And it does not make sense you hide that child because he's partially blind or is blind or cannot walk or has the challenges of walking or coordination and is a PWD, she or she, a PWD, Madam Speaker. We need to see them, like our friends that are seated on your gallery, the students and pupils that are seated there. We need, if you have a child, let them be integrated as part of the society, so that they don't feel less of being human being, Madam Speaker. And I'm happy that, Madam Speaker, in the last session we had Senator Maura, who was head of PWD in terms of albinism. We have now a number of colleagues, and the champion of PWD, Senator Crystal Lasige. So we need that reintegration. I think somebody was telling me in terms of the speech of the child, coordination of movement, to be part of the engagement. But see, Madam Speaker, to reasonably access all places, public transport and information. Madam Speaker, I still request that, especially counties, whenever they are giving out scholarship, bursary, let them prioritize PWDs, vulnerable children, the orphans, so that they can get the best they can, Madam Speaker. I have told you, most parents, Madam Speaker, normally are not proud, especially some parents, I'm not saying all, are not proud when they have a child who is slow to speak, who has a PWD challenge, Madam Speaker. And access public transport in Kenya, I think it is still a challenge. Senator Crystal will agree with me, accessing a public transport in Nairobi, you must be, in Nairobi, Madam Speaker, you don't need to go for a gym if you are using public transport. Because the way those makangas or the matris, Madam Speaker, wanakudondosha, you don't need to or they drop you, Madam Speaker. You are being dropped at the speed of 180 kilometers per hour. So you don't need even to attend a gym. So we still have a challenge, Madam Speaker, because even I've seen people, and I'm also guilty as charged, in an occasion where, Madam Speaker, even parking, designated parking areas, designated dropping areas for the people living with disability. You'll find somebody who is not a PWD parking on an area that is meant for people living with disability. And that is why public transport, Madam Speaker, is still a challenge. I don't know what the government will do, so that even buses, the way they are designed, they drop on and pick off, Madam Speaker. I don't know in this country, Madam, we are always in a hurry. If we are not overlapping, this country, Madam Speaker, we are good at bad manners. Because if the matatus are not overlapping, the private cars are not overlapping, they don't care PWDs. I'm happy a number of matatu touts, Madam Speaker, sometimes I saw a story, I can't recall when, where they used to drop and pick her, a lady who was disabled. And those are heroes we need to celebrate, because we need to do civic awareness that our Kenyans, 0.9 million Kenyans who are PWDs, also require these services, Madam Speaker. Article 54D, to use sign language, braille, and other appropriate means of communication. Madam Speaker, I think, and I want to thank Senator Crystal Asika, I think I've seen media houses, even public functions, be it private or public or government functions, I normally see people with sign language. And I think Kenya has come and grown because it was not there before, Madam Speaker. And also to access materials and devices to overcome constraints from persons' disability. The final one, Madam Speaker, is Article 54E. I agree with Senator Crystal that we need to give tax-free and tax exemptions, especially to assistive devices. Madam Speaker, I used to be part of a group called, we were trying to get cochlear implants for the young children, Madam Speaker, and it is very costly. We are being told it costs up to 4 million to get those cochlear implants, especially for the children that have such challenges, Madam Speaker. I agree with that all assistive devices should be zero-rated, should be given tax exemption, Madam Speaker. If we are giving tax exemptions to corporations to start business, I see, which is good, I see corporations come into the country and say, give us tax reliefs, give us tax exemptions so that we can set up business in this country. Let us be humane. Let us give also tax exemptions and reliefs to assistive devices, Madam Speaker, because they are very costly, especially for the people living with it. And this is a small part of our population. It's only the greatest thing that the government can do is to exempt, Madam Speaker, especially on assistive devices, be it listening, walking, because even I remember when I had a political accident in the last session, Madam Speaker, buying that is it called mkongojo or assisting walking crane, very expensive. I doubt even not, and that is why when you go to the village, Madam Speaker, you get somebody working with the miti, this one, Adonna Ribagora, because, Madam Speaker, it is expensive to get the crane, Madam Speaker. We need to zero rate, especially also issues of physiotherapy, machines, so that when our children, especially children who are slow to walk, and maybe to be used in physiotherapy, especially in schools that are run under BWDs, Madam Speaker. I think this is what the Constitution has provided for. I want to appeal to the government. Let us give PWDs and, Madam Speaker, access to cards. I have seen counties. In fact, Madam Speaker, when you come to Nandi, you always get shocked. The PWDs of Nandi are only, when there is a PWD World Day for people living with disability, they are only given soda and mkate, or soda and bread only, and some blankets. That's how these people eat money meant for PWDs. Because you are demeaning them. You are saying the PWDs are what, only soda and bread and a blanket, instead of even providing for the wheelchairs, for assistive devices, for designing offices and government offices and public transport with ramps and access, Madam Speaker. You know, Nandi is a very interesting county. It's a county of funny miracles, where you only give a PWD bread and soda, and you said you have assisted them. And that is how money are lost in counties. Madam Speaker, counties must be held accountable. Let them provide assistive devices. Let them provide necessary support, Madam Speaker. Because, and Madam Speaker, at least for me, from where I come in Nandi County, Madam Speaker, at least me, I'm the only one who cannot be taken to court to the DCI by a governor. Most of the young men in Nandi, when they criticize governor on social media or in funerals or in public functions, you are taken to DCI. I've seen two young men, a young lady and a woman, I think by the name called Vero, Madam Speaker, was taken to the DCI for only questioning non-availability of drugs in the Kapsabet County Referral Hospital. Madam Speaker, I think governors are becoming some demigods, and especially the governor for Nandi, because they are using the power they are given to abuse and frustrate the young people for questioning, Madam Speaker, the social audit. And that is why I'm questioning also, why are the PWDs of Nandi given only bread and soda? Yet they are a unique population that they should be given assistive devices, wheelchairs, among others, Madam Speaker. Finally, because I can see I still have 5 minutes, Madam Speaker, the state shall ensure the progressive implementation of the principle that at least 5% of the members of the public in elective, I don't know what we are doing in that part of elective, we are still doing badly. We need to tell Kenyans that you can be a PWD, but I can see the member of parliament for Westlands, Tim Wanyonyi. Madam Speaker, I think he's serving the 3rd term in parliament. Senator Otsoso, is it right? I think he's serving the 3rd term. Tim Wanyonyi, Madam Speaker, member of parliament Westlands. I want to thank the people of Westlands because they have shown the country that you can elect a PWD to represent you. And Tim Wanyonyi has represented the great people of Westlands just like any other able people, Madam Speaker. I know of a number of legislators, Madam Speaker, we are doing badly. The constitution is 5%. So do 5% of 67 senators. How many should senators be PWD? Madam Speaker, at least we have one we are proud of, Senator Crystal Lasige. And also the appointive. I don't know, Senator Asike, you should bring a statement on the status of appointive. Be it, and I don't want you to be biased against only national government. I want you to request the compliance of this Article 54(2) in terms of national executive. The parliament, Madam Speaker, is failing. We are the lawmakers. I don't think the PWDs we have in Kenya, in parliament, who work for us, Madam Speaker. If you look for it, ni kama kutafuta sindano kwa mahindi, kwa nyasi. Even here in parliament, we are guilty as charged. Can we meet the 5% of our workforce under Parliamentary Service Commission? Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, you sit in the Speaker's panel and you can pass our message. The Commissioner, Senator Kinyo, was here. I would have asked, even the PSC might bring us if they are compliant with 5% of the people living. The national executive, the county governments, the parastatals, Senator Asige, take the bull by its own and demand and it be tabled in the Senate, Madam Speaker, so that we can be aware whether we are meeting 5%, Madam Speaker. And I know you as a senior legal practitioner in this republic and former Secretary General of the ruling party. You can also assist us because you are a lawyer. I expect lawyers, Madam Speaker, even to give pro bono. As even, I don't know where we can include in the law, Senator Crystal, to also request that we get pro bono legal services for PWDs. Madam Speaker, can you believe where I come from, Nandils? Many workers who pluck tea get injured by war, Madam Speaker. Their hands are cut off and they are only paid peanuts. When they are working in those tea estates in Nandi and across other tea estates, Madam Speaker, they don't imagine that they will be disabled. But because of how they, and I know you have handled such matters, especially in Employment and Labor Relations Court, and I'm happy in KICC that there is a symposium on employment. Senator Crystal, we have another small, another dangerous, silent people that is forcing people to be, especially our tea estates, because of pangas. People are losing their limbs, their fingers, their eyes, because, Madam Speaker, as they do that job, it is very unfortunate. So, Madam Speaker, I want to appeal that let us widen. This thing is not only unique, Madam Speaker, to only people who are born with, but we get along, Madam Speaker. And there is a crisis. I went to court, in the labor court. You get people who are working in tea farms. In many other farms, Madam Speaker, they have lost their limbs, their fingers, their hands, Madam Speaker. Even another killer that is causing disability is the border. We need to also, I am happy that the President a few months ago launched training for borders. And I'm happy a number of even my chairman of border circle in Nandi attended. Madam Speaker, when you go to casualty in Moichiting and referral, in Kapsabet, in all our facilities, even near KNH, there must be an accident caused because somebody is injured through motorbike. I'm not saying the borders are bad for the country. They are not, but we need to teach them so that they cannot continue to injure and cause grievous bodily harm and create, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to conclude with, since I don't know, I'm the seconder, but my time has been limited. Madam Speaker, I just want to go to obligation of counties, section Section 5.
Senator Cheralgei, I'll give you only half a minute to conclude so that you second that. Point of order, Senator Wakoli.
Can you freeze that half a minute?
Frozen.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to standing order number 105. My good learned friend alleges of people being taken to DCI by His Excellency's governor. If a senator has sufficient reason to convince the Speaker that standing order, is it in order for the good advocate barrister to allege that